Hello everyone! You must have had this feeling when you get immersed in a movie so much that you forget about reality. In many ways, this is possible thanks to the special effects. The more brilliant they are, the more the line between fantasy and reality becomes blurred. Let's take a look behind the scenes of the latest movies and some classics to learn how their creators used VFX, and what the most famous scenes in history look like without CGI. Let's get it on! Tenet. Let's take advantage of time inversion and go back to the moment when the first trailer of the movie Tenet was released. Nolan promised to surprise us, right? And he kept his word. But apart from the time inversion, the film is also very interesting since most of the action scenes were shot without CGI. Remember the episode where a Boeing crashes into a hangar? Everything's real. The plane, the building, the explosion. In the words of actor John Washington, it was epic. And we believe him. Or for example, the highway chase scene. The film crew decided that the cars had to move in reverse at a speed of 60 miles per hour. To do this, they had to hide a second set of control panels in the vehicles and put stuntmen behind them. Even the scene where the protagonist and Neil take off from a 20-story building was filmed without a green screen. Stunt coordinators thought, what if we do a bungee jump, but backwards? To do it, they installed a high-strength aluminum structure on the roof, attached Pattinson and Washington to it with cables, and with a button they could pull them to the right spot. Not to mention the fighting scenes. The actors had to work for hours to learn all these complex movements in reverse. The Mandalorian. How do you create an incredibly realistic fantasy series, get an Emmy for visual effects, and save money on production? The creators of The Mandalorian know the answer, since they achieved all this using the revolutionary stagecraft technology. The team didn't have to find the right locations and bring the equipment with them. All the background images are projected on LED screens, covering almost the entire set. The main screen is 21 feet high and almost 75 feet long. However, The Mandalorian is not entirely digital. Many visual effects were created without CGI. For example, all aliens were played by dolls or actors. Even the IG-11 droid is an animatronic robot. But we know which character you want to hear about. In most scenes, Baby Yoda steals the show. He was played by a doll made by the studio Legacy. The only exceptions are a few scenes. For example, when he eats a frog. By the way, the doll was so cute and realistic that the actors constantly played with it. Well, surely you would have done the same, right? Attraction. Destroying a residential area to shoot a scene for a movie might be too much, even for movies with a huge budget. So how do you explain the scene in the Russian movie Attraction, where an alien ship destroys a whole residential area on the outskirts of Moscow? We must thank the Main Road Post Studio team for this show. They literally built a whole digital city. The specialists developed a program in which they created the buildings brick by brick, like a Lego set but cooler. To make it more realistic, they needed to use real building drawings so that the buildings would behave like real constructions when they were destroyed. Imagine. Even the concrete slabs with mesh wire sticking out were created by a computer algorithm. What's more, one of the workers in the studio found a traffic algorithm on the internet, thanks to which all the cars in the film react to each other and stop at traffic lights. Yes, the vehicles aren't real either. After the virtual neighborhood was created, the only thing left to do was drop the alien ship over the city. And the result is very impressive. Spider-Man: Homecoming. When you see the behind-the-scenes footage from Spider-Man: Homecoming, you might be disappointed. Green screens, trampolines, cables, and other mechanisms everywhere. Where are the great scenes they showed us at the movies? Well, everything was created in an office with a VFX sign on the door, and these people did a great job. Remember the scene where a huge ferry's about to break in two, but Spidey manages to connect them using a spiderweb?
Oh my god!
To achieve this kind of detail, a team of 282 artists had to work for over a year. Can you imagine the amount of work they did? Even the behavior of each type of web was carefully created by an algorithm. However, the ferry is not completely digital. At first, the designers created a three-dimensional model, which was used to build a real-life model. The result was an impressive construction almost 75 feet wide, 45 feet high, and 100 feet long, or 65 per 45 per 100 feet. Each of the halves weighed about 95 tons, and at the right time, they poured about 5,300 cubic feet of water between them, right on the set. So much work to satisfy the audience, isn't it great? The Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn Part 1. During the filming of Breaking Dawn Part 1, the Image Engine studio faced an extremely difficult task. They had to create plausible 3D models of the huge wolves so that the viewers would fear for Bella. What would the director have done if the special effects specialists had not helped him? Perhaps he would have dressed the extras in ridiculous outfits? Fortunately, this didn't happen. First, the artist studied the anatomy of wolves. It was necessary for the computer models to move realistically as they went up or down the hills. Once they got an idea of how the animal distributes its weight during a chase, the experts started to work on their emotions. Surely you agree that the grins and roars of the digital wolves are very real. But the most difficult thing, of course, was drawing the fur. The shooting started in 2010, and at that time, Image Engine didn't have tools as good as it has today. However, the team of artists led by Neil Escuri was able to create the wolf's coat hair by hair. At least for this great work, the film is worthy of our praise. Chappie. How did Neil Blomkamp and his team manage to create such a charismatic and surprisingly human robot?
You are a very bad man.
Very simple. Underneath the layer of high-quality CGI, there is a real person. But let's start from the beginning. The development of Chappie's character began long before the shooting started. Two companies were working together. Image Engine, led by Chris Harvey, was in charge of visual effects, and the company Weta Workshop was in charge of production. After the final 3D model was created based on the sketches, it was time for Sharlto Copley to shine. The actor dressed in a special gray suit with motion capture tracking dots and started acting. To better feel the robot's proportions, Sharlto had to wear some elements on his suit, like a breastplate. And then the Image Engine artist started working. In post-production, the team had only 2 months to replace the actor with Chappie. We imagine that the work must have been very difficult. Mulan. Let's start with a curious fact. According to the VFX supervisor Sean Faden, up to 67 horses were used on the set of Mulan at the same time. Now remember the scene where Mulan gallops through an avalanche? Do you think black wind in these shots is real? To answer this, let's go behind the scenes and see how actress Liu Yifei skillfully rides a mechanical model covered with green cloth. Don't worry, we thought it was real too. It's almost impossible to distinguish the CG horse created by the studio ImageWorks from a real animal. Of course, they had to work on the mechanism. A special program was created to make it move at the right pace. But the animators outdid everyone. They used a 3D model of a real horse and used it to create a virtual skeleton with layers of muscle and fat, so that the bodies would move as realistic as possible. The result is incredible. We can only imagine what computer graphics will be able to do in a couple of decades. X-Men Apocalypse. We probably won't be wrong if we say the scene that struck you the most is where Quicksilver runs through an exploding mansion and rescues the students. Well, let's see how this scene was shot. Of course, in real life, Evan Peters didn't run at an incredible speed on the set, but he still had to sweat. The director made the actor get on a treadmill with the green screen and run against a huge wind machine and even carry mannequins that were supposed to be the rescued students. The rest of the work was done by the cameraman and the Rising Sun studio. The former used a Phantom 3D camera in a shock-proof box that ran through an explosion at nearly 80 miles per hour and shot 3,000 frames per second. And Rising Sun's workers created all the visual effects and scenery down to the smallest detail. Even the dog was computer generated. Well, it was a long and complex post-production process, but it was worth it. Wow. The Hobbit. We have to warn you, your world is about to turn upside down. Remember the legendary scene where the dwarves visit Bilbo and eat all his food? This is what it looks like without special effects. Lonely Gandalf wandering around a green room pretending to have a conversation with someone. There's not a single real dwarf. Unfortunately, trolls aren't real either, although their emotions and movements were created by real actors using motion capture technology. The dwarves and Martin Freeman performed the battle in an empty space, and the assistants held sticks in front of them with a ball at the end so that the actors looked in the right direction and at the right height. In general, almost all of the mythical creatures in the trilogy were created with the help of CGI. But the scenes with Gollum involved a real actor in a mocap costume. How did Freeman manage not to burst out laughing at that moment? Rocketman. You must be a little surprised. Rocketman is not a superhero movie or an action movie with explosions and chases. What kind of incredible computer graphics could we be talking about? But this movie has lots of CGI. Take, for example, the scene of the famous concert at the Dodger Stadium, where Elton John performs in front of 35,000 spectators. But there's not a single real actor among them. And the stadium's not real either. Let's see how the studio Cinesite created this place. First, the specialists built a virtual model of the stadium. They used photos of concerts to recreate elements elements of the design, the location of the spotlights, and the banners. Then, using green screen, real people were recorded as if they were listening to Elton's performance, and then the artists put their digital copies into the digital stadium. Now remember how ridiculous human models looked in video games 10 years ago? Technology's come a long way, don't you think? Hold on a second. Do you want to see some crazy stories from real life? Nothing dull, only action. Only adventures, chases and fights, love confessions and sudden betrayals. Don't believe us? Follow the link and see for yourselves. Our animation channel Private Diary reveals the deepest secrets. Don't forget to subscribe.